on nutrient dense, fiber rich foods. And what that means is having lots of fruit and vegetables, colorful vegetables, greens, legumes, squash. We've been ordering a lot of groceries on from Walmart, like online and from different places. And, you know, having like, you know, baby spinach, having containers of baby spinach, having like, you know, you can get 10-pound bags of potatoes for, you know, like $4.49, right? Potatoes are amazing. They're full of potassium and B6. And I also think too, looking at recipes, experimenting, trying new things. So one of the foods that came into my head this morning before this was like rutabaga. You know, not too many people have rutabaga or turnips and things like that. So when you go to the grocery store, if you are going to the grocery store or ordering online, make sure that you're getting a lot of fruits and vegetables. I think a lot of people are afraid because they think that they contain more germs. And I think there's a lot more produce that is available. Also, frozen vegetables are really great. You know, starting your day off with a really good healthy smoothie. I made mine this morning, you know, threw some greens into it. I also throw some raw cacao. I'm a chocoholic. I mean, I have to admit that. The other thing is, you know, make a really healthy soup. Last night we made a lentil soup and I've been finding recipes online and I put carrots and celery and just really good vegetables in it and onions and garlic and things like that. Also, you know, I'm baking healthy food too. If you have kids at home and you want to make healthy baked stuff, you can do that really easily by having oat flour. You can make oat flour using oats and you know, and using coconut sugar and using less sugar, which is really, really important. So, you know, just adding a lot of really good things to your diet, not having too much caffeine, you know, is also really important because caffeine dehydrates us. And one of the things I like to say to my clients is, and to people when I'm like my students, is, you know, the whole idea as we age too, is to keep ourselves plump and juicy, you know, and the things that keep us plump and juicy are like lots of fruits and vegetables and water, not having too many dehydrating things in our body, like coffee and too much alcohol and things like that. So those are some of the things that I would really recommend. Also, snacking every couple hours is really important because it helps with cravings, because we basically run on glucose and mineral salts. So making sure that you're getting enough glucose in your system and that you're not taking too much fat, which would impede that. So having like dates and apples cut up and celery. And one of my jokes about celery is celery actually works like a vasodilator. So it's really good. It works like Viagra. So feed celery to your husbands and, you know, to your partners and things like that. So I think that's really important, you know, and empowering ourselves by choosing healthy food. And that's the most important thing to keep ourselves strong.
There we go. You mentioned in earlier table talks that sugar has an effect on our immune system. If you could just touch on that again, because, you know, it's often said by someone I know that really cannot stand sugar, feeling that it's the biggest drug ever on the planet, that we don't really know all the places of sugar that sugar exists in. It's everywhere. So that recommendation from earlier this week that you made, I think would be great if you could repeat that again and just have people out there just keep in mind, sugar is really planted everywhere in our food system. So being mindful of it is key.
Definitely. And sugar is actually in savory foods as well. They put sugar in it because there's a bliss point where we get enough sugar and salt and fat, and then we feel full, right? Like it kind of overrides our brain's ability actually to know when we're full. So companies do that so that we'll eat more of their product. And sugar suppresses your immune system, you know, and it's also very acidic. It causes a lot of acidity. It actually robs your bones of calcium because calcium is used to neutralize all the acid and everything. But there's sugar in everything. And the healthiest sugar that you could possibly eat, or glucose, is from fruit. Because when the sugar is bound to fiber, it gets metabolized differently. So having lots of fruit is really, really essential for your body, and staying away from sugar. So if you are going to bake, use coconut sugar and use less of it. So if it calls for like 1 cup of sugar, I tend to put in half a cup because we don't really need that much sweet. And over time, as you know, get used to having less sugar, I think it takes 21 days or something for that to happen. It's very helpful because then you don't have those same cravings anymore. Yeah. But sugar is pervasive. It's in everything. I mean, it's in pad thai. It's in sushi. It's in everything. And according to the World Health Organization, 25 grams, which is 6 teaspoons of sugar, is your daily intake. So
Incredible.
try that with your kids, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Day made a good point here that putting vegetables and fruit in a bowl on table around the snack time, and
Absolutely.
vegetables just before dinner to entice the children, they grab it as they run past because it's so available. Thank you very much, Day, veteran mother. You know, it's really key, and I found that works. You could have an orange sitting around, but the minute you start to peel it or you make it readily available and accessible, all of a sudden people are like, oh, I want some, kids and adults alike. So great point. And there's a question here. Do kids multivitamins, gummy bears, really provide the requisite nutrition? I know there were big bottles of them at Costco.
You can give your kids gummy bears. I mean, when I was growing up, it was like Flintstone vitamins, not to age myself again, but that's what we had. But I think a gummy bear is fine, but nothing beats eating really healthy and good nutrition, I mean, and as Dave was saying, I mean, you can take carrots, you can cut them up, leave them in water, filtered water in the fridge. You can do that with celery. If you get your kids into snacking on fruit and healthy things, even dates are amazing, and figs and prunes. Those are great. They're good for you. Prunes are good for your bones. They're just really healthy. So get your kids into snacking on that, and bake the stuff that you love. Like, I love chocolate, so I put chocolate into everything, but I use raw cacao. And I even put it in my smoothie this morning with my greens. But making healthy stuff, it's better. And if you get your kids used to not having too much sugar and having fruit instead, they're not going to crave it the same way. I mean, having that said, when my daughter was little, she used to trade her healthy snacks for unhealthy snacks once in a while at school, but she doesn't have a sugar craving. Like, she doesn't have that need for sugar because she wasn't raised on it. So having a lot of fruit. What's that?
It really is a craving. Our son was raised understanding that raisins were candy when he was very much younger. And he grew up realizing, hey, wait a minute, you lied. Not candy, so it's nature's candy. But there's that, and that definite addiction and withdrawal symptoms from not having sugar in the diet. I just wanted to note to everyone, just before you do take the floor again, Ara, the response in the polls are great. They're great responses. Keep it coming. And also know that if you have any questions, now's the time to type it into the chat. You can remember to send it directly to me. You can have everybody see it. It's up to you. But if you have questions of any of the panelists, whether they're presenting or not, put it in the chat and I'll read it out for each panelist. Even at the end, if we do not get to your question, we will find a way to get the answer to you, as we have all during the week. So Aura, you were saying?
Just that it is important to make sure that you are getting enough glucose in your diet. That's really, really important, because otherwise it can lead to addictions. We need that. And we need to be snacking on really healthy things, like giving your kids or even yourself having an apple cut up. You can put some cinnamon on it. Cinnamon stabilizes your blood sugar. Having some dates, maybe some celery with it. Those are great snacks because they keep your gas tank full, so to speak, and then you don't have the same cravings.
Yes. You know what? I really want to actually move to, thank you very much, Ara, for all that information. I want to move to Dave for a moment. And the reason why is because that topic of sugar highs and lows and this back and forth with a house full of children is very pertinent. It's pertinent to emotional well-being for the parents as well. And understanding how we can actually modify the way that we feed our children and therefore actually affect their behavior is kind of key. So I'm curious as to, Dave, what you're doing with regards to, nutrition and scheduling and engaging with your children in the home. With 4 children, by the way, people, if you're wondering how many.
Those are the young ones. Well, what we've been doing is, first of all, we've eliminated juice. Not eliminated, but we don't have juice on.
You know what? What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause. And I'm going to come back to you, Dave, because they are trying to sing.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry. It's okay. They want to enjoy themselves. So what we'll do is we'll move on to another question beforehand and then see. Dave, if I can ask you, if you could put your hand up when you've got a moment where they're like taking a breath, then we could get
right now.
Okay. Okay, go for it.
They all went when they looked at me. We take away juice, so we don't have juice on a regular basis. Special occasions, maybe every so often with meals, but mostly water, water, water. That's one thing. The other thing is whenever we have a dessert, it's a baked good, so it's something that we make here. We don't pull out the chocolates. I don't think we have any chocolate bars. We have some secret ones for Easter, but we don't have any chocolate bars or anything like that handy for them to eat on a regular basis. And we've been trying to accommodate each child with their taste. So my son, for example, likes sweet and crunchy. So we do snap peas, those sweet snap peas, and he's actually taken to it. I'm so surprised. This is a COVID thing. I'm going to run with it. I'm happy about that. But like Ara was saying, we're really watching what they consume in the content, trying to make it as balanced as possible. They love baking with us. They love making the sweet goods, cookies, etc. And we also, with my scheduling, I mentioned in my past webinar, I'm sorry, really quickly, we schedule a time when they can pick their snacks. So we have parents' choice snacks and kids' choice snacks. And the parents' choice is usually the fruit and vegetables. And the kids can choose that really they're not always feeling cut off. I'll pause.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reiterate some of what you just said, because some of it I think was caught and some of it may have been lost. But the fact that you allow them to take part in choosing their snacks and schedule the times to keep that regularity and keep some kind of, structure in their day, not only around what they do and how, they study, but also when they eat. Because it's very easy when we're all in almost 24/7 to just kind of say whatever, kind of graze here and there. So those are perfect tips, and I appreciate that. Day will come back to you. I just want to provide a question here. I am a coffee addict. I just make sure to balance it by making sure I drink lots of water and minimizing the number of cups of coffee per day. Can I ask in about 10 to 15 seconds, if you're able to address that, Ara, what your thoughts are on coffee consumption, which, I'm sure it may have gone up for some people just being inside all day?
One coffee a day, I think, is fine. I would never take that away from somebody. So having your one coffee and drinking the water is really important. I think it's 3 cups of water for every cup of coffee to compensate for the dehydration or the water lost from it. So, and don't do a double-double. Just throw a little bit of almond milk or however you want your coffee, but don't put a lot of sugar in your coffee.
Thank you, Helen. Helen, did you have, you're muted. So, Helen? You're muted.
No, it was me who raised it because I am a coffee addict. And I minimize the number of cups of coffee, and I don't drink it after a certain time. The first thing that I have in the morning is not a cup of coffee. The first thing I have is a blend of, and you can appreciate this, Ari. It's a blend of ginger and cardamom and some other oils that I put in hot water with lemon. It kind of gets my digestive system going, and I kind of let that rest for a while. I don't drink coffee immediately thereafter. So that's why you see me with my little cup here. And I don't drink it after, say, 3 o'clock.
Okay, nice.
But I just felt that I needed to mention that. There are here.
It was a good question, and I think it is pertinent. And knowing how to balance that. I feel like there's been quite a bit of mention of structure and, scheduling and just trying to get things in a way that we can create new norms and live this life in a productive and healthy way. And I feel, Steffi, that's directly in your area when it comes to, how do I do this? At first, it was kind of like, okay, this is novel. It's stressful, but it's novel. But we're 3 weeks in now, and people are realizing, wait a minute, there's stuff that I still need to get done. How do I do it? And I want to start you off, Steffi, with this question. It's with regards to the kids. Kids sometimes seem on edge and tend to be meaner than normal to each other when they fight. What can we do to teach them to be kind while pent up together?
Wow, that's a very good question. And it is normal to feel a little bit more anger when you're pent up, especially as a child, and Day can answer that too, to not feel restricted by your freedom. You're used to being a kid and running outside and playing with your friends, and your parents are telling you you can't go near anybody. Pretty frustrating. So that's where we come in as models of behavior, of communication and Helen can talk to this in stress management too, is communicating to your loved ones that I acknowledge, honey, this is a hard time. And it's going to feel frustrating to be restricted. So here's what we do allow, and here's what we think isn't helpful. And I think if we model kindness in our behaviors towards others, they can take that. It's not the words we say as much as the actions. So if we are kind to ourselves, you know, I talk about self-care and self-kindness, we also teach our children to be kind to themselves. So what in their day can replace getting together with a friend? Can they do a virtual board game? Can they set aside time for fun that feels good to them? I suggested to my daughter the other day to virtually bake with her best friend across the street because they weren't getting together. So also I asked my kids to do something kind for some of the frontline workers. I said, listen, guys, this may be tough for us, but we're not there dealing with crisis after crisis. Would you mind when you baking some baked goods? And in my Facebook community group page, Kind Acts During Community Virus, I just have posts when people have needs for baked goods, and we wrap them individually and then drop them off. So I think in terms of pent up energy, acknowledge it, let them share their frustration, and then show them other ways to be resourceful during that time. They need to mourn the fact they're not able to do the same things they were able to. So their anger has to come out, but the kindness comes by displaying your actions, encouraging, thinking of others who are maybe having an even tougher time than we are.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much for that. You know, that piece about expressing the emotions, when I talk about the trauma recovery piece for a bit, I'll definitely fix on that, because that's something that we're not always conditioned socially to express, especially if it's not something that looks happy, happy, joy, joy. Those emotions that may not feel happy, happy, joy, joy end up getting locked down and repressed. So I'm glad you spoke to that, especially in acknowledgement with regards to kids. So what else would you like to share with regards to creating new norms and strategizing in our homes for this productivity and peace of mind and balance?
Absolutely. I can share my screen here. I'll go to the first. Let's start with self-compassion during this time before I share a schedule. So let me bring this up. Can you all see this self-compassion sheet?
Yes.
Facing
yes.
it. So first of all, as I talked about before, but I'm just reiterating again, create a mini plan that lays out your day. So are you temporarily laid off? Okay. Let's look at what free resources are out there that can fill your days. Do you have an exercise routine? Put that in your day. Do you want to start a mindfulness program? So on the next point, keep or start an online and meditation program. Many places are offering free programs now. It's incredible, the resources. I have a free resource sheet I share. Start a journal, sharing your feelings and letting them out at this time. I have a lot of clients who think about starting a journal, but now they're doing it. Clean and declutter. Start a fresh new template for your work and life organization. Keep online networking. Career search is not dead during this time. In fact, become more resourceful. Online network, comment on blogs, join groups of areas you're interested in, and keep the online community going. Join Zoom and start a video chat with a work group and a friend group. It will make you feel more connected. I have a call set up with some Queen's girlfriends this weekend, and we're all gonna, sit around and chat and catch up. Read books that help keep you uplifted and hopeful. Authors like Tara Brach, an amazing mindfulness teacher. Right now, she's offering a free 40-day program. Eckhart Tolle, all about how worry pretends to be necessary. Learn to not worry about what the future brings, but be in your now by grounding and connecting with meditation and self-care, self-massage or yoga. Teach yourself a new skill via YouTube. Try a calming activity. And then again, to the career, learn a new career skill well off. LinkedIn is offering free courses, as is Yale, Harvard, and all the top Ivy League schools. I'm doing a course right now on morality. It's fascinating. So if someone has expressed they're having difficulties, reach out to them by email, check on your elderly neighbors. We're all in this together. So, but first, I may add, take care of yourself. First, find your needs and create a routine that suits you. then reach out to others. And try not to get caught up in the collective anxiety and fear. Be the calm and centered one.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, those are amazing resources. And when you look in chat, Steffi, feel free to throw anything in chat that you like. Any of the panelists, please. Just look in the chat. You'll find resources for people who are attending this. They're available there for you to just copy and paste to your heart's desire. Of course, we'll be following up with everyone and providing information and resources and the information of the panelists who are involved in this. But feel free to reach out. Again, remember the poll on the side. Also, remember to place any questions that you have in the chat so that I may ask the panelists on your behalf. I have here a note saying a mindfulness instructor with free Wednesday night sessions on our Facebook page and free access to mindfulness. Let's see here. It's just, oh, you guys are putting lots of stuff in here now, so it's just move on. Bear with me for a minute. And free access to mindfulness for anxiety and sleep. Key right now. Learn practices that help reduce stress and calm fears on Udemy as well. So under Udemy, I believe you would have to search Heal Anxiety, Sleep Easy, Tara Brock. So that's in the chat section. Feel free to copy and paste that. There are also educational offerings that Steffi has shared with us here, and I'm going to, let's see. Ooh, those are beautiful ones. Toronto Public Library, the Ivy League School. So all the stuff that she's mentioned is shared here. I'm going to make sure that everyone could see it. Bear with me for one moment. And then I'm going to ask Steffi another question. There we go. So you mentioned connecting with people while calm. Now, for some people, meditation does that. I know for some people, meditation puts them to sleep.
Right.
So when you say calm, what can that look like? What are the different options? Because there are many options to keeping calm.
Right. Well, first of all, let's acknowledge that meditation can put people to sleep. I know Elise Marie, our massage expert, I'm sure has heard that many times, and that's okay. That, you know what, maybe your body needs sleep. I'm always jealous of those people that fall asleep during a meditation. I'm like, really? I would love to fall asleep during a meditation. I can't nap. So I think it's what your body and mind need, and there's no correct way to do meditation. In those offerings, I share a free one called The Oak, and sometimes they're 2 minutes. And if we go to the daily routine, I suggest the plan. Often it's just doing a 1-minute meditation. Nobody needs to feel they know what to do. And if it brings up trauma, as you can address, Kata, that's different. You have to do what suits you. So Qigong might be better. I have free teacher offerings in Qigong because that's more body. And it's not as pressured in the mind if you've been through trauma. So I'm very conscious of who I work with, what their personal situation is. And sometimes it's a deep breath. And it depends on the individual. So whatever meditation is for you, I think it's about finding the space between the thoughts. Overthink. I mean, don't you love that quote from Eckhart? Worry pretends to be necessary.
Yes. Yes.
We don't need to worry as much as creatively problem solve. You have an issue, set outside time in your day to work on that issue. When you're not with that issue, leave it alone and be in your moments. And that doesn't take away from pain, trauma, sadness, anger, all these stages of grief we have to go through during this pandemic. But be incredibly self-compassionate. This is something none of us have ever experienced.
Thank you so much, Steffi.
Pleasure.
You know, we have been taught that worrying makes it seem like we care more. It makes us feel like we are productive or using that mind matter and the energy to do it. I like the piece where you say just active, you know, being active in what it is that concerns you, breaking it down into bite-sized chunks so that it's actionable, and also discerning what is actionable and really what is not within our control or even need to manage. You know, I can't manage something that's happening across the city. People would tell me sometimes about different people who are doing different things that really had very little to do with me, but there's a connection somehow, maybe same occupation, I looked similar to the person, whatever it may be. So I take what I can and leave what I cannot deal with. And that alone takes a load off, which brings me to Elise Marie when it comes to taking a load off, because the tension in the jaw and the shoulders and the back. So I'm going to start you off with the question I have here.
Sure.
I have pain in wrists, arms, shoulders, and back, lower back. It's hard to massage for a satisfying period of time. Are there any items I can use at home to help with massaging myself, the neck up? I can't go to the store, by the way, to get the items.
Absolutely. So resources around the home are surprisingly abundant, and we don't necessarily think about that. Something as simple as a corner on a wall can provide enough structure and pressure against an area in the back. If you can stand up and lean against something, and it provides a nice little bit of pressure. We don't want to create pain, but just a little bit of that resistance to meet where you need it to be can be helpful. What I have at home are massage balls that are about so large, about the size of a softball, and a medium density. And what I can do with that is put it up against the wall and lean against it and use that. I've also recommended clients to use tennis balls. If somebody has a pet, take one of their chew toys. It's weird and it might be uncomfortable, but I'll tell you what, it works. And then you also get the joy of your dog trying to take things from you. But you know, using simple things around the house, a door handle, just as long as you aren't causing pain and you're doing this within a range that is gentle, self-aware, and you're not doing it over any bony structures, then we tend to be okay. But tennis balls, any sort of dense thing, you can use a strap of a house coat or a belt to help create some tension for a stretch. If you're trying to do a stretch over your back, using a belt between your hands to stretch those upper arms, upper shoulders, even simply taking the time, as you were saying, Steffi, taking the time to do it. Tag your stretching and tag these exercises onto something that's already a habit. We all hopefully brush our teeth. So while you're brushing your teeth, why not do a little bit of a neck stretch? Or stretch out your calves, or stretch out your shoulders, stretch out the front of your chest. If you're having neck and arm pain, simply taking your wrist and bending it backwards, bending it forwards, and getting that good stretch along your arm. Doing that for 30 seconds a couple of times a day is going to help to relieve that tension. Also being aware of your positioning, because I know a lot of us are at home, a lot of us can get stuck on the couch and into positions and postures that we may not necessarily see as quite advantageous to us throughout the day, and I am definitely guilty for that. And there's a reason I'm sitting on a stool and not a chair with the back right now. Just force myself to sit up straight. But looking at the posture and where some of these areas of tension might be coming from. A lot of people are working now in a home scenario as opposed to their desk at work, where they may have had an ergonomic setup. At home, people are working on kitchen tables or on laptops on their couches and having to use these new scenarios. So taking a look at your workspace to sort of find, as I was saying on Wednesday, inquiry. Where is this coming from? How are these things being layered into my system, especially given all of this change that's been going on?
Yes. Thank you so much for that. And we're actually going to continue with you, Elise Marie, because I know there's so much. There's a wealth of information that you all can offer. I just want to give some feedback from the audience here. This is from one particular person, and since we haven't preemptively asked everyone if you're comfortable with sharing your name, I'll leave it as anonymous. She's thanking all the panelists for being very helpful. She particularly liked, Steffi, when you said we don't need to worry as much as creatively problem solve. And the other piece she really liked was when I mentioned breaking it down into bite-sized chunks. So we're getting good feedback here. We're getting some good polling going on, and it looks like, yeah, we'll be doing much more of this. So thank you guys for polling. Thank you for your questions. And Elise Marie, if we could talk a little bit about that from the neck up piece. The reason why is because I have some personal experience in that area, and not even being aware of it until I was aware that I ground my teeth a little bit, but not a lot, more clenched. So there wasn't a lot of damage from grinding, but the clenching. And I became aware of it when I was referred by an instructor in the area of voice work to go see Julie Poulin at From the Neck Up down on Danforth. And of course, you're familiar with her. The work that she's been able to do, that, you know, go into the area of the TMJ, into like entire, the neck, the jaw, inside of the mouth, people. They go inside your mouth too. So,
So good.
but it's released so much.
Yeah.
So if you had a massage and you've had release in your shoulder muscles and your back muscles, the same thing in the mouth. It's incredible. Can you speak a little bit about that, Elise Marie? Okay, so I believe there's a little bit of freezing happening. So, oh, go ahead. You're back.
I'm back. Okay. There are so many muscles in the body, and they don't stop at the shoulders. A lot of people think that, oh, my shoulders are sore, it must be coming from my shoulders or down. A lot of the times we hold tension, and I mentioned this, I believe it was on Monday, we hold tension in the jaw sort of unconsciously. And what I learned from Jules Poulin, I took her course last year, and the amount of information that you can get from your jaw and your temples and your scalp and your forehead is outstanding. And the amount of impact that it can have from the neck down is really incredible as well. I know mentally for me, I tend to hold a lot of emotion, a lot of tension through here. I deal with stress and anxiety and depression, and a lot of times, sort of like you, Kata, I find that I'm clenching without grinding. I'm not necessarily wearing down my teeth, but I hold tension in my jaw. Mm-hmm. And so when we treat internally, which a lot of people have some trouble with, and that I have had clients who have gone through trauma in the oral area, and so we don't do it internal massage with myself. I actually teach them or will instruct them on how to do it themselves if they're comfortable with it. But working along the front of the throat just helps to clear up tension that we hold being so forward in our society. Phones are down here, laptops are here, desk work, children, everything. We're dragging, when we're on travel, we're dragging suitcases forward. Everything seems to be tensing up through the front of the neck. Through the jaw, it's one bone with two joints, and all of this musculature on the outside and the inside that we can access and really take advantage of to decrease stress. I mentioned on Wednesday, the size of the temporalis muscle, which is on the side of your head, is quite incredible. And a lot of people don't realize it's one of the primary muscles that create that upward movement of your jaw. So if you clench your teeth and you have your hands on the side of your head, you can feel the size and power of these muscles.
That's incredible. I feel like every single area here can go on for a long time. And it will. We're going to break this stuff out, especially considering the areas that I see you guys are interested in the audience. I'm going to read another piece of feedback from an anonymous attendee. This is a great program. Thank you all for your time and advice. I have a question here from Marguerite. For Ara, I know that you said that eating healthy is key, eating fruits and veggies and eating a well-balanced diet. However, wouldn't you agree that it is important to take good, healthy supplements, especially because of nutrient depletion in the soil? The foods and veggies we eat do not have the full amount of nutrients that we need. And that's a question mark.
Yeah. Yes, so absolutely. I do feel that we need to make sure that we're taking supplements. I take supplements. One of the supplements that I would really highly recommend is a probiotic. We have to get the good healthy bacteria in our gut. It helps with so many things. 70% of your immune system is in your gut, and it's really important to make sure that you're taking that. I would say vitamin C is important. B vitamins are really important, and magnesium. Magnesium does over 300 biochemical things in our body. So making sure that you're taking magnesium at night before you go to sleep is helpful. But absolutely, I'm a supplement person myself, and I do believe that there's not enough zinc in the soil. So taking a zinc supplement is really helpful as well. So we could go on and on about that, but I really believe that making sure that you're getting enough of that as well, and maybe a multivitamin if you're not eating properly or you don't have access. And one other thing that I would suggest is a greens powder, like barley grass juice powder or wheatgrass juice powder, but just one at a time, not like a formula that has too many things in it.
Okay, and I have a question from Day, and then
Quick question, is that juice powder available online?
Yeah.
You good, okay. Short circuit the system. So, no, it's all good. So I know that people were asking that question because another similar question is what kind of magnesium and what dosage for that, and zinc?
So with zinc, there was a theory back when where if you took too much zinc, you would displace copper, but we really don't want too much copper in our system. So I like zinc sulfate. I buy the liquid one, and I just do I do a lot of zinc. Zinc can make you feel nauseous if you take too much of it, or if you don't take it with food. So, which is more what I meant to say. So I would say I would do a couple dropperfuls of zinc, like 30 milligrams of zinc is a good amount. You can do a bit more if you feel something coming on. And the other question was?
The type of magnesium, and yeah, that was it.
So I like magnesium glycinate. That's my favorite. 300 milligrams is a daily intake. Magnesium oxide is another form of it. It's great for constipation if somebody is constipated, but I would say magnesium glycinate. You can also use magnesium as a deodorant. You can make your own magnesium, and that you absorb that through your skin transdermally as well.
That's beautiful. That's awesome stuff. I'm all for the herbs, which we'll be getting into a little bit as well. In my training, which by the way, I met Ara because she taught a course that I took in nutrition for holistic practitioner. So that's how I got hooked on Ara. Her wealth of experience and knowledge and her passion for nutrition. There is another nutritional question. I just want to let Elise Marie know that there was feedback. Wow, so helpful, Elise Marie. Wonderful sharing. And so, people are really responding well to what it is that we're offering. One last question. This would be a general question, and I'll speak to it as well. Okay, what are your thoughts about hypnosis to assist in getting rid of exercising bad habits? Did anyone want to speak on that? And this is opinion-based. Just want to make that clear for everyone here. Yeah.
I think you can speak to it, Kata, and so can other people, but I think hypnosis can work if you believe it works. It's like anything in life. If you believe that it helps you, it will help you. I know people or clients or colleagues who have been helped by hypnosis. Is it the be all and end all? Not necessarily, because you need to keep up the habits with your own inner strength, right? But if hypnosis can be helpful. It depends on, again, if you've had a trauma situation, Kata, you can speak to that, if going under would be difficult for you. It depends on the type of hypnosis. For stopping smoking or overeating, hypnosis can play a role.
So when it comes go ahead, Helen.
Sorry. There's also autogenics, which is a form of self-hypnosis. And that's the strategy that people can apply to manage their stress. They can learn how to send themselves those kind of messages that take away the fear that a lot of people have in having someone else hypnotize them. So there's an aspect of autogenics or self-hypnosis, which is effective for managing stress.
Yes. And when it comes to that piece of trauma, I am going to move into that one because of the level of interest in that area and a few of the questions that have been popping up. The way that I've been trained and what I understand, both from my own experience as a survivor of sexual and physical trauma as a child and young person, and as a police officer dealing with things that we're paid to deal with because society does not want to deal with it. There's re-traumatization that happens. And that sounds like it's specific to these situations, but the reality is over 90% of our world has been traumatized in some way. So we're all walking around with different traumatic incidents through which we've lived, and there is a spectrum. There are over 18 different identified areas of trauma. So that's one of the reasons why I can see from the polls that I can see in the chats that people are wondering, okay, how do I deal with this? Now we're dealing with a global traumatic incident. How do we deal with this? The level of awareness that we have is really key. The level of awareness of our situation, where we stand within the situation, and how it is that we can feel safe is most important. It's not one of those kind of quick fix, I'm going to be perfect type of situations. It's literally one of those, I need to sit down, I need to find a still spot, and I need to find a way to feel safe. That could be through meditation. That could be in the company of someone that you trust dearly, because trust is one of the first things to go when traumatized. Okay, so rebuilding that is really key. In this situation that we're dealing with of, and speaking directly to your question and then moving on from there with regards to hypnosis, Steffi, I agree with her wholeheartedly. It can work if you want it to work. There are some people that hypnosis is not the key, that there's something else going on and there is resistance there because it's working with the physiological makeup as well as the mental. So if there is a lot of resistance and there are a lot of blocks, it may not be effective, especially if you're not receptive to the whole idea of hypnosis and being in the space of someone and not having control, right? Because what post-trauma, oftentimes, that's exactly what's happening, is that you've had control ripped away and you've been subjected to something that you feel you ought not to have been subjected to. So not everyone is receptive to hypnosis. For those who choose hypnosis, what I suggest is that you definitely go through a process of shortlisting. Don't go with the first person that's told to you or that you find on the internet. It's very key to find someone that you can trust, whether it's through word of mouth from a sphere of influence that you trust, or someone that you've had experience with and you know for a fact that when they tell you this person's good, they mean this person's good and they're trustworthy. So the key piece is to find that person. The other key piece is oftentimes you run in search of answers in crisis. It can be very tough to find what we need for resources when we are in a crisis moment. And the reason why is because there's fight and flight, right? There is a lack of ability to process things in the same way that I would if I were not in crisis and I am calm. So if, for instance, things are okay, you either anticipate something coming up, or you've come out of a traumatic incident and you've come down to a space where you're balanced for a moment, where you're not breathing as heavily, you're not hyperventilating, you're not panicking. Take those moments to look for that resource when it comes to hypnosis or counseling or any type of resource. Take the moments of calm in order to find that short list and that person with whom you want to speak. When we think about it, we go to the doctors, if we can, regularly without being sick for those checkups. Not everyone does the checkups, really should. But we go during regular moments where it's like, oh, it's time for that yearly, or it's time for whatever. It's the same thing with our mental wellness, that we can actually create that short list or bring someone into our circle, our team of care and support when there isn't a crisis happening, so that if something should happen, we know how to go and where to go. Right? It's when we're not in crisis that is the key time to build the resources. Let's see here. I will talk a few more minutes about the trauma recovery piece. And the reason why I find it important is because we have a huge stigma that surrounds trauma. The stigma is based on a core of victimology, of shame, of secrecy, of guilt, all these different things that surrounds having gone through a traumatic incident. When you think about it logically, really none of that should be attached to having gone through a traumatic incident. It's just something that's happened, that's painful, that we may not have anticipated happening, but bear no responsibility in it happening. Keeping that in mind, for instance, with this COVID-19, we did not ask for this to happen. For many of us, we're sitting here in a situation that we do not want to be in, and we feel like it's something that we have no control over. It's very difficult to deal with a situation where we can't go outside of our home. We may not be able to see family. We may not be able to do these different things. So what do we do in a situation like this? We create a bubble. Okay, you have these people here in front of you who have offered you resources. We're creating a bubble that we feel safe by when we get up in the morning, taking those few extra minutes before diving onto a device, diving into work, diving into anything, just to find some stillness, some peace of mind, some balance. It doesn't have to be a long time. It doesn't have to be meditation. It's just 5 minutes max to do whatever you want to do. Stay there and stare at the ceiling. Get a few extra minutes of sleep. Think about what you would love right now in your utopia, the best of anything in your life. What would that be? Take those 5 minutes and you take those same 5 minutes at the end of the day. The reason for that is because we set ourselves at the beginning of the day. It sets a tone. Okay, so if you immediately jump out of bed with the alarm and get going with what you want to do, or maybe what you don't want to do, you never offer yourself an opportunity to reset and be still and to be able to resiliently get through your day. Right now, we're dealing with a situation we don't have control over. So you have to create little bubbles of control, management, balance, and self-awareness. And those bubbles can be at the beginning after you get up, and at the end of the day once you've cooled down and settled down into your bed. There are questions that are coming and coming and coming. And so what I'll do is, okay, I'm going to wrap up the trauma piece. I'm going to revisit the nutrition piece because a couple of those questions pertain to something that you did say that I want to get in before we actually wrap up, Aura. Okay, so should we be taking a supplement since we are not outside that much?
Absolutely. You can take vitamin D. That's very helpful. You know, about 2,000 milligrams of vitamin D is really, really helpful. 2,000 IUs of vitamin D is very helpful to take daily. I wouldn't take much more than that unless you are low in vitamin D. That's very, very helpful. And yeah, you know, try and get a lot of your nutrients in food. You know, I know that food is hard to get, you know, if you're not leaving your house, and it takes time to get things delivered, but adding greens to everything. I add spinach to everything I eat. Your liver loves spinach. It's really healthy for you. It's full of folate. It's really, really good for you. So, but absolutely, vitamins and nutrients are really important, and taking you know, a multivitamin is very helpful as well. So, and probiotics. You know, one thing when I was teaching at George Brown was I said to my students, if you don't do anything else that I suggest, you know, eat more greens and take a probiotic and drink more water.
Thank you. And water with lemon is fantastic, y'all.
Yeah.
Try that at the beginning of your day as well after you finish those 5 minutes of the bubble. So what I will do is get this last question off, and I want to wrap up with the stress reduction piece. And one of the reasons why I'm saving that for last is because stress is something that we also stigmatize, but it is life. If you think about it, if we didn't have a person who's creating out of clay some kind of image, if there was no pressure on that piece of clay, the amount of clay, there would be no image created. We are being molded by the stress. It's how we manage it that actually makes a difference. It's always around us. So the stress reduction and conflict resolution piece when it comes to cabin fever is what I'm going to move into in a moment after I get to these feedbacks and to the questions. So another feedback, thank you so much, Mary. Thank you for the awesome webinar. I was a guest of Steffi and grateful for your upbeat panel. Y'all, upbeat, we're keeping it real and keeping it upbeat. And loving the setting of the tone of the day and your evening too. Thank you so much, Steffi. And let's see here. Managing trauma, phenomenal, Kata. Love the 5 minutes to set an intention beginning and end of every day. Bubbles of control, management, and self-awareness. So thank you so much, Cindy, for that feedback. So getting down to the stress reduction, which we all can always use some extra information. And from this person who teaches it and has taught it for many years, the floor is yours, Helen. Oh, your mic is on. Off.
Okay. Okay. Many of you have sort of said everything that I was going to say, but I'll see what I can share that has not already been stated, because a part of stress reduction is about what we eat, it's about what we take in, it's about how we plan our day, et cetera, et cetera. So I think one of the things, given the amount of time that we have, I'd like to help people to focus on breath. The opposite to stress is what we call stress relaxation. And if
I'll ask you to pause for 1 minute, we have more time than you think. So you have the full 10 minutes. Yeah, so don't worry. So don't wrap it up. Yeah, no, don't wrap it up too quickly. We need to dig into this meat. No, keep going.
Okay. So the opposite of stress is stress reduction, or the relaxation response. And one of the key aspects of the relaxation response is breathing. A lot of women, unfortunately, we tend to breathe to here. And we tend to hold in a lot of that stress because we're not breathing deeply. So here's one thing that we can do in terms of breath. We can take our fingers and hold them here on our nose, put one finger here, the other finger here, and then breathe in one nostril and out the other. And as you alternate this several times, you'll actually notice that you're clearing the nostril, which is a really good thing, and you're also helping to reduce stress. Another aspect of breathing is to breathe diaphragmatically, because if you look at a baby, when a baby breathes, and you might know of this, unfortunately, I don't have kids, but when kids breathe, when little babies breathe, their stomach is going in and out. And I really feel that as women, we've been so conditioned to having this flat stomach that we walk around with our flat stomachs and not really breathing deeply. So if we can breathe diaphragmatically, that's a really good help. And breathing diaphragmatically, the best thing to do is make your hands like this, put it on your stomach, and then breathe out and feel your hands as it expands as you, I'm sorry, not breathe out, breathe in. And then out. This is one of the types of meditations that I do. Actually, it was the last 2 meditations that I did when I had my in-class sessions at Centennial before we were obliged to do online teaching. And I'm glad that I was able to squeeze that in, because I think that at this point in time, it's a helpful thing to do. You don't require any expensive tools or equipment. And it's certainly something that one can do at any point in time. The other aspect, apart from breathing, is I'd like to just talk about the SMART log, and I'm not talking about SMART planning. I'm talking about stress management and reduction techniques. So that's another way of looking at SMART planning when it comes to stress reduction. So looking at relaxation techniques, and Steffi, you talked about mindfulness and meditation. So all of that is one component. I'd also like to add to that humor. Humor is really helpful. You can go online and find laughter yoga. It's a little hokey, but if you follow laughter yoga, it's a way of just kind of laughing in a goofy kind of way, and laughter actually helps to reduce stress. The other thing is effective communication. And taking the I out of communication. I'm sorry, taking the you out of communication and putting more of the I. So it's not like, you make me so angry, like, why are you doing such and such? Instead, it's, I feel upset or I feel distressed when such and such occurs. So we're taking away the blame of the other person. And that also helps us to engage in a more effective way of communicating. I also want to learn to cope with anxiety, because a lot of us are feeling really anxious. None of us have experienced this ever before, regardless of our age. So how do we cope with that? Also recognizing that with the anxiety and with the stress, a lot of times it's perception. It's how we perceive it. It's how we think it. And I mean, there isn't an animal coming at us with, or someone with a gun. Kata, you might be able to speak to this. There isn't someone with a weapon coming at us. Yeah, we hear people, if we watch the news, talking about putting together end of life plans and putting together wills and all of that. So it's creating a lot of anxiety. Yes. And I think that's also a perception that people are holding on to, that says, you know, well, I've got to do this, and I've got to do that, and so on and so forth. Understand that the perception is really something in our minds. So if we can begin to kind of put that aside, if we can begin to just stop and allow ourselves to not bathe in it, but recognize that it's out there, it's not in here. And if we can do that, that would be helpful. Also, seeking support of friends and family who you can talk to, reaching out. I recently found a gig picture of, seeing as how I'm a coffee addict, I found a gig picture of coffee steaming up. So I've sent that to a couple of friends and colleagues who I know are also coffee addicts, to say, here, let's share a virtual coffee for the day. So reaching out to people is really helpful. And certainly, as Ara pointed out, developing effective nutrition, because nutrition is key. I often, even though I'm a coffee addict, I also acknowledge that when we drink coffee, it accelerates our heart rate. So if we're feeling anxiety and if we're feeling stress, that might not be a good time to reach for that coffee. Instead, maybe we want to do the breathing, maybe we want to do the water and so forth. Physical activity. We don't have to be outside. We can do lunges. We can, do squats. We can do all kinds of things to keep our body active and so forth, as opposed to sitting on the couch. Then we can manage our time more effectively. That's another way of managing stress. And we can manage our time effectively by looking at what I would call the ABCs of time management. So what's an A? What's something that you must do now? What's a B? What's something that you should do? And what's a C? Something that you could do. So if we can do all of that, I think it helps us, because none of us have more hours in the day than anyone else. It's how we manage that resource called time, which is part of what is all encompassed in this issue of stress. Feeling that we don't have enough, feeling we don't have enough time, we don't have enough money for many people, feeling we don't have enough love, feeling we don't have enough attention. So how do we manage these pieces is really important. So those are the key pieces that I'd like to share today. I've got a lot more.
Oh, I believe you. I believe all of you. And that's why,
like
whenever we have opportunity to have you back at BeWISE, we'll take it, because I know there's a wealth of experience and knowledge and information that you're so generously and graciously sharing. I can't express to you how grateful I am to all of you for what you've been willing to do this week in light of COVID. And we could say it's in light of COVID-19, but really I know of each of you that you do a lot, even outside of this situation. So I'm grateful for who you are and how you do things. And looking at the feedback that continually keeps coming up, I see, very informative. Be safe, everyone, and have a blessed weekend. People are happy to receive this. Wonderful stress coping strategies is the feedback for you. Helen, Dr. Zarel, thank you and bless you all. And I know Helen is not a label person. I changed the label out from everywhere else but here. So I apologize, Helen. But you know what? Kudos for you, because you got what you got. So anyway, I'm just saying that, you're highly respected, all of you. And I want to wrap up the entire session with some device care information and, support, because like I said, we're using this stuff more than we ever have before. And Masaba Mwambu has been kind enough to give us some key pointers as to what to do and perhaps what not to do, not only for taking care of the device, but also taking care of ourselves and using the device. His area is IT, so IT is his life for the last 2 decades, as you heard earlier. So he has some really good points to share with us today. Masaba, if you'd like to wrap us up.
Hi, thank you all for joining. There's definitely technology has taking over every aspect of our lives, including now, especially now. And every now and then, I guess there's nothing frustrating. You're playing that video, or you're doing something, and you get that spinning wheel, and you wonder, oh, what's going on? And you get frustrated, and so instead of stopping to breathe and take a breath, you start getting frustrated. So there are a few things that one can do. First of all, a lot of times you stop for a second and see if you can replicate that problem. And if it happens, then there could be a lot of different things that it could be. But I always go for the keeping it simple. So you start off, if you can, save whatever work you're doing and reboot the device. Start with that. See if that solves the problem. And then if that doesn't work, there's several other things that one can do. For example, if you think that you're having a problem with your bandwidth, that's the amount of volume of information you can send out to the internet and back, there are a lot of tools that you can get online that will test that speed. You know, whoever your ISP is providing the internet for you, you're paying for a specific amount of bandwidth. Say, for example, 15 meg down, 10 meg up. So it will never quite achieve that bandwidth, but the speed tests like Ookla or whoever your ISP is does have those speed tests. So you can just, you know, do a simple test and see where you're at. Because again, now that we're all working from home, usage of bandwidth is more at certain times. So your neighbors, you know, collectively, everyone is streaming content. Collectively, you're going to be slower. So say, for example, you are going to have a Teams meeting or a Zoom or any video conferencing. You know, you might not want to start at 9 a.m. sharp because all your neighbors are going to start at 9 a.m. sharp, and then you'll get pixelization of your video. So, you know, shift it by 10 minutes or 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be, you know, on the dot exactly. Simple things, you know, reboot your router, turn it off, you know, wait, you know, 2 minutes, turn it back on. But also, more importantly, is where it is located in the house. You know, don't stick it in a cupboard somewhere and expect to get good connection. You know, it might, there'll be interferences. Whenever it's going through a wall or thing, it will reduce on the signal strength. But likewise, there are also other things that can interfere with that signal, like, for example, microwaves or baby monitors, or there's a couple other things that can interfere with the frequency of your wireless. If you're still having problems also, a physical connection is still the best way, unless you have, you know, top of the line Wi-Fi router, but a physical connection to it is always, you'll get the most bandwidth out of your system. And, you know, if you wanted to get geekier, you could, you know, make sure that, you know, your modem is on the latest firmware. Whether you own, if it's something that you're renting from your ISP, you know, it's their responsibility to keep it up to date. Or if it's something that you own, make sure that you keep it up to date. Likewise as your laptop or your workstation. You know, keep these devices up to date, and especially if you're going to be online as much as we are now, make sure there's some antivirus on there. There's some free ones out there, and there's also some paid ones. It depends upon what your budget is. But have some form of antivirus, because there's so many phishing, Trojans, viruses out there that the last thing you want to do is have something hijack, you know, before an important meeting, have something hijack your computer because you failed to spend $10 to get a good antivirus. It's a little bit more than that, but.
I was gonna say, where's the $10? And you know what? If you guys do have problems, guess who you can call? Masaba Mwambu at Protect Solutions. But I have a couple of questions I just want to interject with here. What time is the best time to work online to avoid lags? You mentioned maybe 10 minutes after a major hour, but is there any other suggestion for time of day?
Well, it depends upon what you want to do. If there are certain things, like if you wanted to upload a lot of content or download a lot of content, well, you can actually schedule that to do it at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, there's less people online, so it will go faster for anything that involves like large amounts of data transfer. And also, in terms of reducing the amount of bandwidth, you'd be surprised. I know everyone I've talked to is as to how many devices in your house are actually connected and are using data. You had an old phone, your PlayStation, your this, that, whatever. And half the time, so what I do every once in a while is do an audit of how many devices are actually connected. You go, oh, what's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? You know, everything is connected. You know, you have a smart light bulb. You have this, and they're all consuming data. And, you know, a lot of devices will automatically update. So if you're having issues, turn off all those idle devices and reduce that amount. Because even though you think something is on standby, it's not necessarily, it is designed when it's on standby to do the things that it normally wouldn't do while it's on, like looking for updates and all that stuff. So manage it so that, you know, you can have
Good point.
the best experience from working at home.
Good points. And for those out there, ISP stands for Internet Service Provider.
Yes.
Do Lysol wipes damage keyboards?
No. It's unless it's the one at the end and all the liquid is down there. For cleaning of a keyboard, I would probably, if you have a can of compressed air to get out. A lot of people, when they're working at home, or even at the office, and I think it's all over, eat over their keyboards, and you don't realize what it looks like afterwards. Whenever someone comes to me and says, "Oh, my keyboard's, this key's not working," I'm like, "Yeah, and I ain't touching that."
And what about a good free antivirus? A good free antivirus that you would suggest?
There's quite a few. Apple, Microsoft, there's for a Windows platform, there's Bitdefender, there's quite a, Bitdefender. If you're on a Mac, you could use, just trying to,
Get out the list.
I had it, I just lost it, I had it.
That's okay, that's okay. And I know you have extensive resource lists. So for anybody that might be interested in that, I'm going to throw that into our information that we'll be sending you anyway as well, and just make a note for myself. Because what I'm going to do is wrap us up, because that's all she wrote. I created a little extra time in light of the fact that we didn't go in breakout rooms, so I just brought that into the space. And we have one last feedback here. Oh, one more question. So I'm going to wrap us, but if you would just keep this in mind, Masaba, these are great expert, helpful insights regarding this IT realm of internet connections, date, modems, software and hardware, Remac, malware bytes. So
Yes, that's a good.
Oh, malware bytes, that's a suggestion? Okay. Okay, so that's a suggestion, malware bytes for Mac. Thank you again, everybody. Everybody who's here in the space, panelists, Era Wiseman for Era Wiseman Nutrition. Thank you. You can find everybody on Facebook. Helen Ziral, PhD, who's a Reiki practitioner as well and deals with stress reduction and conflict resolution. Masaba Mwambu of Equitech Solutions when it comes to tech support for the little guys and the individuals who now comprise most of the traffic on internet nowadays, since we're all home. And Elise Marie Walsh, when it comes to your work at Metcalf, which is in Ottawa, actually the massage therapy clinic, doing great work and now incorporating from the neck up type of massages and bringing a lot of attention to that. And Steffi Black, when it comes to kindness and self-compassion, your work, Acts of Kindness on Facebook, look up Steffi Black and her group. I am now part of that group and an advocate for the self-compassion that's necessary for us to get through this, but also through life and realize that we're all connected. And Day Callaghan, professional woman, artist, and mother. This woman is inspiring with all the people back there, the little people back there that she's managed to be in here for this period of time and keep a face that's still so beautiful and calm, even though probably World War III is going on in the background. So one of the best and informative webinars I've had the pleasure of attending, I'm seeing here, so comprehensive, will spread the word about this and all of you. Thank you so much, Cindy. Thank you so much, all of you. I wish you the best, and be safe, keep well, be wise, and remember to be true to you.